I got home from work on a Friday night expecting nothing unusual. Maybe my wife Emily would be making dinner, or we'd watch something on Netflix. Instead, I walked into what looked like a staged setup. The furniture had been rearranged into a semicircle, with one chair sitting empty in the middle, facing all the others. Emily was standing behind that empty chair with her arms crossed, wearing this weird smile that looked more nervous than happy. Sitting in the other chairs were her four closest friends, Jessica, Megan, Dana, and Kelly. They all turned to stare at me like I just walked into something I wasn't supposed to see. Except I was supposed to see it, because this whole thing was planned for me. Emily cleared her throat and said we needed to have a serious conversation. She told me her friends were there because they'd witnessed what she'd been going through, and they had important things they needed to tell me. I put my keys down slowly and just looked around at everyone. The whole thing felt surreal. Jessica jumped in first, saying this was an intervention. She told me I needed to hear some hard truths about how I'd been treating Emily. I looked at that empty chair again, then back at all their faces watching me, then at Emily looking almost satisfied. I sat down in the empty chair. For the next 2 hours, they took turns listing everything wrong with me. Jessica started by saying I never prioritized Emily's needs, that I was emotionally closed off, that I made her feel bad about spending time with friends, and that I was too controlling about finances. Megan added that I don't communicate my feelings, that I'd stopped putting effort into our relationship, that I don't plan romantic things anymore, and that I make Emily feel lonely, even when we're together. Dana spoke more gently, but her words still stung. She said I don't seem interested in Emily's daily life, that I'd gotten too comfortable, that the spark was gone, and I wasn't fighting to get it back. Kelly delivered the harshest criticism, saying they'd all noticed how disconnected I seemed at social gatherings, that I barely participated, that I didn't appreciate what I had, and honestly, she didn't understand why Emily had stayed with me this long. The whole time, Emily stood there nodding along, occasionally saying things like exactly or see what I mean. Her smile got bigger with each criticism. She actually thought this was working out how she planned. I sat there silently and just listened. I noticed how they'd clearly rehearsed what they were going to say. I noticed how the criticisms got more personal as they fed off each other's energy. I saw Kelly recording parts of it on her phone, but mostly I paid attention to the specific dates and times they mentioned, as examples of when I was supposedly distant or unavailable. Those dates matched up perfectly with nights I'd recently started suspecting Emily had been meeting someone else. This wasn't actually an intervention. This was a performance. Emily wanted me to lose my temper, to yell, to give her ammunition so she could be the sufferer in whatever story she'd been telling herself and everyone else. I decided right then that I wasn't going to give her that satisfaction. When they finally finished talking, the room went completely quiet. Everyone stared at me, clearly waiting for some kind of breakdown. They expected tears, begging, asking what I could do to fix myself. Instead, I stood up slowly, looked at each person sitting there, and smiled just a little. I said thank you for the clarity, and that confused them. Then I turned to look directly at Emily and told her I'd work on all those issues in my next relationship. The room froze. Jessica's wine glass stopped halfway to her mouth. Megan's mouth opened, but nothing came out. Dana looked down at her lap. Kelly's phone lowered. Emily's smile completely disappeared. I continued in a calm voice, saying I appreciated everyone taking time out of their evening to come over. I told them they'd really helped me see things clearly. I looked at Emily and said, we'd discuss logistics tomorrow, but tonight I'd stay somewhere else. I walked to the bedroom, grabbed my gym bag that I always kept packed, and added my phone charger, laptop, and clothes for Monday. When I came back through the living room, they were all frozen in place, whispering frantically to each other. Emily tried to stop me, but I told her no. She'd orchestrated this whole thing and wanted clarity. Now we both had it. I walked out into the rain. My phone started buzzing before I even got to my car. I drove to a hotel in the northern part of the city and checked in. The room was exactly what I needed. Clean, quiet, and impersonal. I sat at the desk with my laptop while my phone kept lighting up with messages and calls. There were probably 15 texts and 7 missed calls. I ignored everything except sending Emily one message saying I'd come by tomorrow around 2 to get more clothes and to please make sure her friends weren't there. Then I logged into our joint credit card account and started looking through charges. Patterns jumped out immediately. There were restaurant charges on nights Emily had told me she was having casual get-togethers with her friends, but the amounts were way too high for one person. On October 8th, there was a charge for $193 at an expensive steakhouse. That same night, Emily had texted me saying she was grabbing drinks with Jessica, but Jessica had posted on social media about being home with her husband. Then I found the hotel charges. A boutique hotel downtown had a day rate charge for $258 on September 15th. Same hotel on September 23rd, October 10th, October 24th. All weekdays, all during times Emily had told me she was working late at the office. I made a spreadsheet with dates, charges, amounts, what Emily had told me she was doing, and what actually happened based on the evidence. The total came to about $3,400 over 8 months. Next, I pulled up our phone records from the shared plan. One number showed up constantly starting in March, 153 calls and texts over 3 months. Daily contact with someone whose number wasn't saved in her phone under any name I recognized. I ran the number through a reverse lookup service. It belonged to someone named Marcus Chen, age 34, living in the Seattle area. Facebook filled in the rest. Marcus Chen had mutual friends with Emily from high school. There were comments on her old posts from years ago. His relationship status had changed from in a relationship to its complicated 8 months earlier. Recent photos showed him at the same restaurants that matched our credit card charges. So Emily had reconnected with a high school boyfriend through social media 8 months ago and had been seeing him regularly since then. Her friends probably had no idea she'd been lying to everyone, including them. I saved everything, screenshots, documents, timeline, made 3 copies in different locations. My phone buzzed again with a message from Emily saying we needed to talk and this was ridiculous. I typed back that we already talked and she was very clear about wanting a divorce. She replied saying that's not what she meant. I told her that's exactly what she meant, and she said it in front of witnesses. Monday morning, I sat in a lawyer's office on the 45th floor of a downtown building. The view overlooked the waterfront. I handed the lawyer, Patricia Sanders, my organized folder with financial documentation, phone records, timeline, social media screenshots, and notes from Friday's intervention. She read silently for several minutes, then looked up and said this was remarkably thorough. She asked how long I'd suspected. I told her 2 months for certain, and another 4 months of vague unease before that. She said most people confront immediately and lose all the evidence, but I'd given us an exceptionally strong position. She asked if anyone had recorded the intervention. I mentioned Kelly had been recording parts on her phone. Patricia said that was excellent. A public humiliation attempt with witnesses shows character and intent. She explained that our state has community property laws, but misuse of shared funds for an affair is different. We could seek reimbursement for those charges. She asked about the down payment on our house. I told her $90,000 from an inheritance from my grandmother, and I had bank records showing it came from my separate account before marriage. She said that was perfect. Separate property that I'd be entitled to get back. She outlined the strategy file papers this week, serve them at Emily's workplace, push for a separation agreement, seek the house or full compensation plus reimbursement. She told me what I needed to do. Don't have emotional conversations with Emily or her friends. Everything goes through her. Keep documenting. Be prepared for accusations, but don't defend or engage. I asked what about her friends. Patricia paused thoughtfully and asked if they knew about the affair. I said I didn't think so. Emily had told them I was a terrible husband and lied to everyone. Patricia said that was interesting, because people who stage public humiliations usually do it from a position of moral superiority. When that foundation crumbles, she said with a smile, interesting things happen. Before the legal papers were served, I needed to collect more of my belongings. Saturday at 2, I arrived at the townhouse. Emily's car was there, but thankfully no friends. She opened the door before I could use my key, her eyes red from crying. She said thank God I was there and asked if we could please talk about Friday. I told her I was just there for clothes and work things. I walked past her to the bedroom, and she followed, saying I couldn't seriously be planning to leave over this. She said it was supposed to help our relationship, not end it. I stopped and asked how having her friends spend 2 hours criticizing me, while she smiled, was supposed to help. She said she thought if I heard it from other people, I'd actually listen, because I never listened to her. I told her I'd listened to every word Friday night very clearly. I started packing and decided to play my hand. I asked where she was on October 8th. She blinked in confusion and asked why. I said because she'd texted me that night saying she was having drinks with Jessica, so where was she actually? She said she was with Jessica and asked why I was asking. I told her Jessica had posted on social media that night about being home with her husband for movie night. So where was Emily? Really, she went pale. She said she didn't remember every single night. I brought up the expensive steakhouse charge, $193 for dinner for two. Who was she with? She stammered that she probably met Megan instead. I continued with the hotel charges. September 15th, day rate. September 23rd, same hotel. October 10th, October 24th. All times she'd said she was working late, but hotel charges every single time. She asked what I was doing, if I was spying on her. She called it insane and controlling. I pulled out my phone and showed her screenshots. I asked about the phone number with 153 calls in 3 months and daily texts. Who was Marcus Chen? She froze completely. I told her social media is very informative. High school boyfriend who reconnected this year. All those charges, all those hotels, all those late nights. I asked how long it had been going on. She started crying and saying it wasn't what I thought. I said it was exactly what I thought. 8 months since March, while she'd been telling her friends I was the problem. I asked if they knew. Did Jessica and Megan know she was cheating when they spent 2 hours Friday telling me I wasn't good enough? She insisted she wasn't cheating, that it wasn't physical. I pointed out that hotel receipts said otherwise. She broke down saying they were just talking at first, that Marcus understood her, that I was always working and distant. I asked if Friday night was her exit strategy, make me the villain so she could leave without being the bad guy. She said no, she wanted us to work out, wanted me to change so she wouldn't need him. She stopped herself. I said so you wouldn't need him and laughed without any humor. I told her that's not how relationships work. If she was unhappy, she should have talked to her spouse, not cheated and then orchestrated public humiliation to justify it. She switched tactics, saying she'd end it with Marcus completely. We could go to counseling, fix everything. I asked if she wanted to fix it after staging an intervention to tear me down, after her friends recorded parts of it, after 8 months of lying. She said her friends didn't know about Marcus. They just thought I was neglectful, and she could tell them it was a misunderstanding. I told her she was going to tell them something, but it wouldn't be that it was a misunderstanding. Her eyes widened. She asked what I meant. I said I was filing for divorce this week, and her friends would learn exactly why. She said it would humiliate her and ruin her friendships. I pointed out she'd tried to humiliate me Friday in front of those same friends while I sat there knowing she was lying to all of them. She said that was different. I said no, it's exactly the same, except I had evidence. She was fully panicking now, saying we'd been together 6 years and married for 4. That had to count for something. I agreed it did count for something. It counted enough that I should have gotten an honest conversation instead of an ambush. It counted enough that she shouldn't have spent our money on another man. It counted enough that she shouldn't have lied to everyone we know. I grabbed my suitcase and said my attorney would be in touch. She asked in shock if I'd already hired an attorney. I said I hired one Saturday morning, she'd be served this week, and I suggested she hire one too. She asked if I was serious. I told her I'd never been more serious. She staged an intervention to end this marriage, and congratulations, it worked. She insisted she didn't want to end the marriage. She wanted me to fight for her. I stopped at the door and turned back. I said fight for her. She'd spent 8 months cheating, then gathered an audience to tell me I wasn't worth her time. Why would I fight for someone who thinks that's acceptable behavior, she said. Because I loved her. I told her I loved who I thought she was, but Friday night she showed me exactly who she really was. Someone who orchestrates public humiliations to avoid honest conversations. That's not someone worth fighting for. That's someone to walk away from. The next few days were a blur. Papers were served Wednesday morning at the coffee shop where Emily met her friends regularly. Jessica and Megan were there and watched her face go white as the process server handed her the envelope. My phone exploded. Emily called 12 times and sent over 20 texts. Jessica called 3 times, leaving messages about how I was destroying Emily. Megan sent texts saying this seemed fixable. Dana sent one message hoping we were both okay. Kelly kept calling from unknown numbers. I didn't respond to any of them except one text to Emily saying all communication goes through attorneys. Wednesday evening, Emily showed up at my friend Tom's house where I'd been staying. I came to the door but didn't invite her in. She asked for just 5 minutes face to face. I said no, everything goes through attorneys. She asked if I was really going to throw away 6 years over this. I said I wasn't throwing anything away. She did that Friday night and 8 months before that. She said she made a mistake, but divorced without even trying. I told her she tried to publicly humiliate me instead of having an adult conversation, and that told me everything I needed to know. We were done. I closed the door. Thursday afternoon, Patricia called saying she'd gotten an interesting call from Jessica Hayes, one of the intervention participants. Jessica had called to inform her I was being unreasonable, and this was all a big misunderstanding. She said Emily was devastated, and I was refusing to communicate. Patricia said that was accurate. I was refusing, and good, stay that course. But it gave her an idea. She asked how I'd feel about a meeting, since Emily's friends seemed very invested. They were there for the intervention, so they should be there for the truth. She wanted to present the evidence supporting our divorce petition. And if Emily's friends happened to be present to support her, they'd learn some interesting things. She asked if I was game. I absolutely was. Friday at 3, I arrived at Patricia's conference room. Large table, organized documents, windows, overlooking the water with rain falling outside. Emily came next with her attorney, looking exhausted and nervous. She sat across from me but wouldn't meet my eyes. Then the friends arrived, Jessica, Megan, Dana, and Kelly. They looked confused but had been invited by Emily for support. They sat around her at the end of the table. Patricia began by thanking everyone for coming and introducing herself and Emily's attorney. She said she understood some people were there for support, which was fine, but they'd be hearing private information. If anyone was uncomfortable, they were welcome to leave. No one moved. Patricia said excellent and explained that Emily's attorney had seen the petition for full reimbursement of misappropriated shared funds, the house or equivalent compensation, and standard asset division. Emily was contesting these terms. Before her attorney could respond, Patricia said the demands were based on documented evidence of financial infidelity and misconduct. Perhaps it would help if everyone understood the basis for the position. She opened a folder and slid copies across the table, credit card statements from March through November, with highlighted charges. The friends leaned in to look. Emily went pale. Jessica read aloud, asking why restaurant charges mattered. People eat out. Patricia said yes, but note the amounts and dates. October 8th, expensive steakhouse, $193 for dinner for two. Emily had texted me that night saying she was having drinks with Jessica. She turned to Jessica and asked if she was with Emily on October 8th. Jessica hesitated. Megan said quietly that she wasn't. That was the night Jessica had posted about movie night with her husband. Jessica looked at Emily, asking what was going on. Emily said nothing. Patricia continued listing hotel charges. September 15th, day rate. September 23rd, same hotel. October 10th, October 4th. All midweek, all during hours, Emily told me she was working late or meeting friends. Kelly looked at the statements and asked why Emily would need a hotel in the city when we all lived there. Patricia opened another folder with phone records showing one number appearing 153 times in 3 months. Daily communication. The number belonged to Marcus Chen, Emily's ex-boyfriend from high school. They'd reconnected on social media in March. Dana's voice shook, asking if Emily had been talking to her ex, Marcus. Emily wouldn't look up and whispered they were just friends. Patricia said friends who met at hotels multiple times, friends she bought expensive gifts for using shared funds, friends she had dinner with while telling her husband she was with the women sitting at this table. Megan turned to Emily saying she'd been seeing Marcus since March. Emily said it wasn't like that. Jessica's anger was building as she said they'd spent 2 hours last Friday telling me I was the problem, that I was neglectful, didn't prioritize Emily, was checked out, and Emily had been cheating. Emily insisted she wasn't cheating, they were just reconnecting. Kelly held up the hotel documents saying $3,400 in charges wasn't just reconnecting. Dana spoke quietly, sounding devastated, saying Emily let them ambush me. Sat there smiling while they told me everything I was doing wrong, and she'd been lying to all of them. I spoke for the first time in a calm voice, saying I'd been working normal hours like always. Emily needed me to be neglectful to justify what she was doing, so she told her friends a story, and they believed her. Jessica turned to me asking why I didn't defend myself Friday, why I didn't tell them. I said because I wanted to see how far she'd go. She went pretty far. Patricia pressed on, asking Emily if she'd informed her friends about Marcus before the intervention. Silence. Did she tell anyone she was meeting her ex-boyfriend multiple times per week? Emily whispered no. Patricia said, so these women, Emily's close friends, spent 2 hours criticizing me based on a narrative Emily created. A narrative designed to make her affair seem justified. They didn't know they were being used to provide cover for infidelity. Jessica stood up furious, saying she'd defended Emily, told me I was lucky to have her, said horrible things to me because Emily told her to. Her voice broke, saying Emily made her part of this, made all of them part of humiliating an innocent man. Megan's hands were shaking as she said Kelly had recorded it and parts went on social media stories. If this came out publicly, Kelly went pale, saying she'd deleted the videos after 50 people had seen them. Dana looked at Emily with tears, asking how she could do this to them. They'd trusted her. Emily was crying, saying she didn't mean for it to go this far. She just wanted me to fight for her. One wanted me to care enough to stop her. I asked, stop her from what? From cheating. That's not something I should have to stop. That's something she shouldn't do. She said I was so distant, I didn't notice she was unhappy. I said I noticed everything, her being on her phone constantly, the unexplained charges, her never being home. I noticed all of it. I just gave her enough rope. Jessica said with disgust that Emily had hanged herself with it. Patricia laid out the settlement terms, the house equity, the reimbursement, the legal fees, total of $283,000. Emily's attorney looked defeated, saying his client didn't have that kind of cash available. Patricia said then the house sells, or Emily gets a loan to buy me out. Jessica stared at Emily, saying she was going to lose the house over this. One by one, the friends stood to leave. Jessica said she was done, told Emily not to call or text. They weren't friends anymore. Emily had used her to hurt someone who didn't deserve it. Megan followed her out. Dana stopped by me tearfully, saying she was so sorry, she should have questioned things. I told her she was manipulated. Emily was good at it. Kelly left without speaking. They were gone. Emily sat alone, except for her attorney. She said broken that she'd agree to the terms, whatever, she just wanted it over. Patricia said they'd have papers drawn up by Monday. Emily looked at me and asked if I was happy now. I'd destroyed everything. I said no, she destroyed everything, and I was just making sure I didn't go down with the ship she'd sank. 3 months later, I signed the final divorce papers in Patricia's office. The house had sold. My portion came to $279,000. Emily paid the reimbursement and legal fees in full. The divorce was final. Patricia asked what I was going to do now. I told her I'd bought a condo in a nice neighborhood, smaller than the townhouse, but it was mine with no shared history. She asked about Emily. I said last I'd heard, Emily was living with a roommate across town. The affair with Marcus had ended 2 weeks after our meeting. Turns out he wasn't interested in a public relationship. Her friends still weren't speaking to her. She'd changed jobs because she couldn't handle running into people who knew what happened. She'd started therapy. Patricia asked if I was handling everything okay. I told her honestly I felt lighter. The marriage had been dying for months and I just didn't want to admit it. Emily did me a favor with that intervention, gave me clarity. Patricia smiled, saying I'd handled this better than 90% of people she worked with. I didn't engage emotionally, didn't fight dirty, didn't try to hurt Emily beyond protecting myself. That was rare. I said Emily hurt herself. I just documented it. Patricia said that was wisdom a lot of people never find. 5 months after the divorce, life had settled into something peaceful. My condo had large windows overlooking the city with morning sun, good coffee, and silence. This space was entirely mine. Every piece of furniture, every choice, every moment of peace. Work was going well, and I'd gotten a promotion. My focus returned when my personal life stopped being a war zone. Meeting Tom for drinks one evening, he asked if I was dating yet. I said not yet, maybe eventually, but right now I was enjoying the quiet. He said he'd heard through mutual acquaintances that Emily was still struggling, had lost her whole friend group, and Marcus was apparently engaged to someone else. I said I hoped she figured things out eventually, but that wasn't my concern anymore. Tom asked if I had any lingering feelings or bitterness. I told him honestly no. She'd shown me exactly who she was, and I just accepted it and moved on. 6 months after the divorce, on a Saturday morning, I was at the farmer's market, buying vegetables and enjoying the morning. The crowds, the flowers, the coffee smells, life happening around me. I turned from a produce stand and saw her. Emily, about 10 feet away. She'd seen me too, and there was no avoiding it. She looked different, thinner, tired, hair shorter, less polished. She was carrying a single grocery bag alone. She said hi, I said hi back. Awkward pause with people flowing around us. She said I looked good and healthy. I thanked her and asked if she was getting by. She said, yeah, she was managing, living across town now with a different job starting over. I said I'd heard and I was glad she was managing. She hesitated and said she knew I probably didn't want to talk, but she'd been in therapy, working on herself, understanding why she did what she did. I said that was good. Everyone should do therapy. She said she wanted to apologize, really apologize, not like before when she was panicking. A genuine apology for what she did, the intervention, the lying, using her friends, all of it. I said, okay. She asked if that was it, just okay. I asked what she wanted me to say. She'd apologized, I heard her. She asked if I forgave her. I thought about it and told her I didn't know if forgiveness was the right word. I wasn't angry anymore, wasn't hurt, just neutral. She was someone I used to know who made choices I didn't agree with. That was all. Tears started in her eyes. She said that was worse than anger. I said maybe, but it was honest. She'd wanted me to fight for her, to be devastated, to beg her to stay. When I didn't, she realized too late what she'd lost. But she didn't lose what she thought she lost. She lost the version of me that would have tolerated that behavior. She said she knew that now. She thought I didn't care because I wasn't emotional, but I cared enough to have standards. She said she'd lost everything, friends, marriage, home. Marcus didn't want anything serious. Her parents barely talked to her. All because she was too cowardly to just have an honest conversation. I told her she didn't lose everything, and she lost the things she took for granted. There's a difference. She asked if I ever wondered if we could have worked through it if she'd just been honest from the start. I said no, because the person who could orchestrate that intervention wasn't someone I wanted to be married to. That was a character issue, not a communication issue. She accepted this and said that was fair. She asked if I was happy now. I said, yeah, I was. Not in a dramatic way where everything was perfect, just in a peaceful, authentic way. I liked my life and who I was in it. She said she was glad and meant it, that I deserved to be happy. I said she did too, just not at my expense. She paused and said she should let me go. I said it was just errands, nothing exciting. She said that sounded nice, actually, boring and normal. She tried one more time, asking if I ever wanted to get coffee and talk about what went wrong, like for closure or whatever. I told her I had closure. I'd had it 6 months ago when I signed the papers, but I hoped she found hers. She asked if I ever really loved her. I said, yeah, I did. I loved who I thought she was. But people show you who they really are when they think they're winning. The intervention showed me exactly who she was when she thought she had the upper hand. That was the truth of her. She nodded, crying quietly, saying she guessed she deserved that. I said she deserved honesty, and that's what I was giving her. We said goodbye. She walked toward the exit. I continued shopping. No rush of emotion, no anger, no satisfaction, no regret. Just recognition that some chapters close completely. She was part of my story, but not the story itself. The intervention was supposed to break me. Instead, it freed me. 1 year after that Friday night intervention, I sat on my balcony with coffee, watching November rain fall on the city, lights reflecting off wet streets. My phone rang. It was my brother checking in, remembering it was the 1-year anniversary. I told him honestly I was great. I'd bought new furniture that week, and the place finally felt completely like mine. I'd gone on a few dates, but nothing serious, not rushing it. He said I sounded different than a year ago, lighter. I told him I was. I hadn't realized how heavy that relationship had become. Constant wondering, constant performing, constant trying to be enough for someone who was looking for reasons I wasn't. After hanging up, I sat with my coffee watching the rain. A year ago, Emily thought she was ending our marriage on her terms with her friends, her script, her audience. She expected me to crumble, to fight, to give her the drama that would justify the story she'd been telling herself. Instead, I gave her agreement. And in that agreement, I took back every ounce of power she thought she had. The intervention was supposed to be about my flaws. Turned out it was a mirror held up to hers. She couldn't handle what it reflected. I learned that love without respect is just slow-motion destruction. I learned that silence can be more powerful than any argument. I learned that walking away with dignity beats fighting for scraps every single time. Most importantly, I learned that the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's building a life so full of peace that the chaos you left behind becomes a distant memory. Emily wanted me to fight for her, but you don't fight for someone who's already decided you're not worth their honesty. You just let them go and build something better. Her friends learned not to be weapons in someone else's war. She learned that public humiliation has consequences. And I learned that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is simply agree with someone who's trying to hurt you. 1 year later, I'm not angry, not bitter, not even particularly interested in what happened to her. I'm just free. And that freedom is worth more than any relationship built on lies. I set down my empty coffee cup as rain continued falling and the city continued living. I smiled slightly, pulled out my book, and settled into my chair. My space, my life, my choice.